terms of oil prices, they surpassed $100 U.S. per barrel for the first time in more than 3.5 years over the weekend. This morning, the price for a barrel of West Texas crude currently sits at just under $100 U.S. Joining me now to discuss all of this is the chief economist at Signal 49 Research, Pedro Antunes. Pedro, good morning. First of all, your thoughts on the market as we are now entering the second week of this war. It looks like investors are going to have to buckle up once again. What do you think?
Yeah, we are going to be going through, I think, a lot of volatility. We've already seen a great deal of volatility. I mean, oil prices, you mentioned, they're settling in at 100, but they were in fact at over 120 through the weekend. This is a situation that is extremely costly to consumers the world over, and so we're starting to see more and more concern around, well, essentially inflationary pressures, especially in some areas like Europe. Natural gas prices in Europe have skyrocketed. So we're going to see a repeat, perhaps, of what we saw in 2022 when the war between, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now, the big issue is how long this all lasts. That's the big question mark. You know, President Trump said 4 to 6 weeks. I just think markets are very concerned about how long this may indeed go on.
Yeah, and President Trump saying it will be worth it in the end, and then gas prices will go down. They will drop like a stone once the war is over. And it's worth noting that the price of oil is now 50% higher than it was before this war began. How long, then, do you see this surge in prices continuing? What does it mean for investors' portfolios?
Well, I mean, we're essentially removing a lot of wealth from portfolios. That's the immediate impact that we're seeing in equity markets around the world. And as I mentioned, we're eroding away at purchasing power with inflationary pressures. Just think about in Canada. You know, we've seen since oil prices were at $58 a barrel at the beginning of the year. So the last when we recorded inflation last time, we were looking at very, very weak oil prices. Now all of a sudden we're running at $100 a barrel. Now, we're less dependent on oil than we used to be globally, and certainly in Canada as well. But still, that's about 3%. Gasoline is about 3% of the basket for consumers. So this is going to eat away at our purchasing power. It's going to essentially eat away at not just in Canada, but global demand. Now, how long it lasts, I can't tell you. It's just going to depend on essentially the situation as it evolves in the Middle East. But right now, I think there's just more and more concern, and thus this volatility we're seeing in markets.
The Canadian loonie has seen some momentum. Is that connected to what we're seeing globally?
Well, remember that we are a big producer of energy. We're certainly a big net exporter of oil. And the fact that oil prices have come up so strongly, this is not necessarily a negative across all of the regions. It's positive for Alberta, Saskatchewan, and certainly Newfoundland and Labrador. Those provinces tend to benefit, obviously, from the higher oil prices. Consumers across the board will feel the pinch of this. But essentially what's happening here is we've not really seen the petrocurrency links that we did in 2011 to 2014 when oil prices were really strong. We'd see the dollar appreciate very strongly. We're much less of a petrocurrency these days, but still, if oil prices come up, there's essentially an increase in profitability, and that brings investors into Canada a little bit. And I think this is what we're seeing reflected in the strength in the Canadian dollar these days.
Final then thought from you, please. For investors, for Canadians who are watching all of this unfold, your advice is what, if they are starting to panic, Pedro?
Well, I mean, what can you do? I think we're all a little nervous about the situation, not just the situation with respect to a war, but the situation with respect to equity and financial markets. I mean, it's our savings, our dollars and cents here. I don't know what to say, except I think you need to kind of just stay calm and carry on. Hopefully this thing is short-lived and we will see oil prices come back down. I think there's still a lot of expectation that will happen.
Pedro, as always, really appreciate your time with us. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.